recorded.
Hello, I'm Panos Kotzathanasis, and this is ASEAN Movie Pulse Interviews. Today I'm here with Lilith Stangenberg, whose film Rizal's Makamisa, Phantasm of Revenge premiered a few months ago, I guess. How are you, Lilith?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to see you.
So, I have to ask, tell me a bit, how did you meet Khavn? How did you end up playing in all of these movies of his?
So this happened because, I think a couple of years ago, I read in a newspaper a review about his film Ruined Heart, which was shown at the Berlin Festival. And I was totally interested in it. So I tried to find it and I watched it. And I felt very sort of his specific language of filming. And I remember I thought, wow, this is really like a film out of the future. I thought this is so different from everything else I can see on film in film festivals. And then I remember some months later, I just wrote him an email. And he replied a week later that he's going to do a half German, half Filipino production with Alexander Kluge. And he invited me to be the lead actress in it. And this is how it all began. And then I remember I flew to Manila to film our first film, which was called Love is a Dog from Hell. And I was not really prepared. He just sent me a couple of songs, I think 9 love songs, because the hell has 9 doors or entrances. And I sort of prepared those songs, but I had only a very little script of like more written like a poem, I felt. And I remember I was in my room in Manila with the schedule for the next day, and it was written 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. And I thought, wow, this must be a mistake. but, but then we started to film the very next morning, and after like 20 hours filming, and I was in each image, I realized, okay, this was no mistake. And then we kept shooting in this form and this sort of schedule for around 8 days.
Okay.
In between the 24-hour shooting day, I had maybe 4 hours or 2 to 4 hours of sleep. So very crazy and very delirious and trance-like way of filming.
And how has your relationship changed through the years as a director and actress? Is it better now? Is it worse? I don't know. How is it?
What do you mean better or worse? I didn't thought it was bad or something. I thought it was interesting the way he's filmed, like this overwhelming energy and all the chaos he puts you in is something I feel quite strangely, but I feel quite comfortable in a certain form of chaos. And I really like working with him. And then, like 2 years later, we did this film Makamisa, the film we're talking about. And that was sort of different because we shot with very old cameras, I think. And we had like 35 millimeter film rolls, and the rolls were expired. And there was an old man who was able to still work with the rolls. And everything was very set, and of course there was only one take, and it was a different sort of energy, but still we had very long shooting days and quite excessive an excessive way of working. But I see movies always as a sort of adventure and a journey. And yeah, when we shot Makamisa, and it was the first time I shot on 35 millimeters, and I felt like sounds strange because I did many movies before, but it felt like it's the first real film I did because of the sound the camera does. It's like a little river floating. And then there was this old man counting the meters, 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet. And I knew, okay, maybe I have 80 feet to give all my emotions. And I felt this is much closer to what real cinema is and to what life is, that you only have one take, one life, one scene, one chance, and there's no multiple whatever.
Okay.
So I lost my virginity as an actress in doing Makamisa.
Okay, and does he allow improvisation, or is it very strict? What are you doing in the movie?
No, it's quite open. So it is scripted, but in the first film, I had many questions to him, and he would always answer, "You do whatever. You go wherever. You go anywhere. You can do what you want." And in the very beginning, I felt sort of quite insecure about this answering and about what I was supposed to do. But then I sort of understood in a very philosophical way that it's me who has to take the responsibility for what I'm doing. And it made me a sort of very strong actress. This is what I think. So.
Okay, and sometimes the scenes that I see you in his movies are very difficult. You have like, I don't know, you're crawling in the mud, you're jumping above graves and doing whatever. So do you enjoy these things? Is it difficult for you, or you say whatever it is, let's do it? What is your composer, let's say?
Well, I have this thing inside myself that I sort of like when it goes into when I can push my own boundaries, or when I leave my comfortable space. I don't know. I think I'm very interested. I think a film and a performance and a role should always reveal something very personal and very intimate and very unique. And if it doesn't, it's sort of dead. I think so. So there is something that I have this urge for always transcend the personal. Yeah. And also there's this thing that in filming you can sort of escape your own boundaries and your own mind and your own costume, and you can just fly away from your own pain and whatever.
And so, but when you don't play in his movies and you do other things, how is it the transition, let's say, from what Khavn is doing to what you're doing with other directors?
It's different. I think with him we share a certain freedom and a certain liberty and a certain poetry, and I feel quite home in his language. But I can also adapt to very different sort of things, and I always try to find my own poetry in it and my own language.
And how about singing in the films? Is it something you are comfortable with? I actually liked your song from Love is a Dog from Hell. I really liked your voice in some of the songs there.
So I wasn't very used to sing before. And the funny story behind it is that so when we filmed this in the slums of Manila, I had a little button in my ear with the music, and he would just go, "Yeah, you sing." And often the button in my ear lose connection to the song, so I just kept going, but I was very, very lost, and I was 100% sure that we will dub my singing later in the studio. And one day I even asked him, and he said, yeah. And everything you later see in this film is from the original, what I did on the streets. And mostly I was very, very, I had no music and I was just repeating, and I don't know, I was very lost. But of course I understand that, yeah, I guess it's more interesting than to give a perfect variation of it.
Mm-hmm.
Often this is something I really learned from Khavn, that it's good to do mistakes. And actually, I try to do as many mistakes as possible.
Okay. You
I,
try to do. Okay.
yeah, I try not to avoid them. I think mistakes, they can be perfect. And
Mm.
because they are alive, and lots of films we see which are just adjusted and proved for its commercial value, they lose their life, and they are dead. So actually, I think what's in between the things we can count and we can rationally understand, the things in between are mostly much more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And
I go with Beckett, who says trial and fail, try again, fail better. So failure is a sort of success, I believe.
oh, okay, okay. And but how different is it shooting in the Philippines and shooting in Germany?
Very different. In Germany, there's always this economical stopwatch. Like everything is scheduled and planned and totally organized, and um, the film sets are quite opulent. So you have many, many people working there, many cars and trucks and light department and so on. And in the Philippines, we were like a little fish swarm, just walking around the city and trying to catch images. Not always, but often. And there was a certain freedom and beauty about this.
Mhm. Do you prefer one or the other though?
I couldn't say which I prefer, but I think maybe it's a disease of German cinema that they became so heavy, and the form of anarchy which I experienced with Khavn is something very potential, I think.
Hmm. Hmm. And in general, what do you look for in the roles you play?
Mm, I don't know. Interesting. So I like. Mm, I couldn't say this in general. I mean, in the last couple of years, I played roles which we often went really into the darkness and into the things what's torturing people. And I think I was really interested in this, and maybe it's a personal thing. I think actually that inside every one of us is like maybe an inner animal or something, an animal part or a primal part that we normally try to hide and we try to keep silent. And this is where art begins. So, because this little animal, the language is art. So maybe it shows up in our dreams or in our fantasies, but this is where art sort of begins. So I think maybe in my roles, I deal with with the subconscious part of myself, and I try to mirror myself in things I usually don't do, and I suddenly can do.
Hmm. Oh, you are thinking a lot about acting in general, right?
Yes, I think I do.
Okay, okay. And you also play in theater, right?
Yes, true.
How how is that? How is it different than acting in movies, let's say?
Hmm. Well, I started my acting on stage. So for some in my early 20s, I was mostly a theatrical actress. And of course, it's something else when you have this live moment and you have all those eyes watching, observing you. And for myself, I always, when I was young, I had this sort of rebellious energy inside myself, and I always understood the stage as a sort of boxing ring or something. Like it was very much about fighting and about weaponizing yourself. And I even had this strange idea that the audience are my enemies. And it's all about life and death. And yeah, I even would call myself like a samurai or something. And now it changed. It changed. I think I changed. But as older as I grow, as more I see acting, and it doesn't matter if it's for movies or if it's for the stage, I see it really much as a spiritual adventure.
Okay, okay. So money don't play any role in what you're doing, let's say?
And my choices,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. No, not really. I mean, I was lucky. I can do things I like, and some often I'm paid for it, so I'm okay. But I no, I think I don't know. I'm
Ah,
not too interested in money, but of course I like money.
okay, okay. And I see I'm checking your IMDb page and it's like full of titles, particularly the last few years, and you also play on theater. So I was wondering, you do so much, is that a necessity or a choice?
Necessity.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, maybe the last couple of years it went a little bit out of control and I worked so much. And the most things I did, you cannot even find on IMDb.
Mm.
So it's much more opens, doors I opened. But yeah, I think it's more of a necessity. And I have this thing that I don't want to stop. And I like the movement and the momentum. And yeah, but I, yeah, I enjoy it too if I don't work.
Hmm.
And it
But
makes
do you feel tired sometimes?
so after a thing, like after a performance, I feel like I don't know, like maybe like a soldier half dead from war or something. I'm very tired. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, okay. And can you, I guess, last question, future projects, what you will be working on next?
Right now, so next week I start rehearsing Hamlet in
Ah,
house
okay.
at the big Schauspielhaus.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I go back to theater now.
Do you think you will be collaborating with Khavn again in the future?
Oh, I hope. Hopefully, yes.
Okay, good, good. Well, I guess that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, okay. All right.